Hey everyone, and welcome to Skillcapped. My name is Dr. Zora, and in today's video, we're giving you the rundown on the 10 worst spots in Valorant that get you killed. In every map in Valorant, there are a ton of positions that you could be playing in, with some of these positions being better than others depending on certain situations. Now that the game has been released for over a year now, there are a lot of common areas that players like to play, and we found a few of these areas to be, well, questionable to say the least. Now this isn't to say that these positions are completely awful, they may be viable depending on the context and situation. However, we found a tendency for players to use them at all the wrong moments. Based on the context, they can be positions that actually give you more of a disadvantage than an actual advantage. So without further ado, let's break down exactly what these 10 positions are. Before we get into that though, we gotta get into our question of the day. Which position do you find yourself playing the most in Valorant? We all have a habit of playing that one spot every time during a certain map, whether we realize it or not. One of my favorite positions to play is right outside the corner of showers. It's an off angle that most players don't suspect, which allows me to get some sick picks. However, I have to admit that this position has its own flaws despite me enjoying playing there so much. Let me know what positions you enjoy the most and make sure to take a deep analysis of whether that position is actually viable or not after watching this video. Going right into our first position, we have the corner of A short on Haven. This is one of those positions that can be sneaky at times and catch players off, but more often than not ends up being a death trap. There will be players that will occasionally not check this position, but if they do, you're going to get killed because there's no escape route from here. You have to run a huge distance to get back onto the site, so if the enemy has 2 or more players coming at you, you're going to be done for. If you're trying to cheese someone with a close range weapon like the Shorty, Judge, or Frenzy, then this could be a decent spot, but with any other weapon, it doesn't really do the trick and you're putting yourself in a massive disadvantage. Instead, a better position to play would be further back at A towers. Here you have a much wider variety of positions that you can play to catch the enemy by surprise. Not only that, but from here you have a much easier time of escaping if you need be. You're also not giving up any additional space with this position because you'll be seeing the enemies at essentially the same time as you would if you were just tucked into the corner. So give these positions a try instead. Now this video is going into some of the worst spots in the game, but if you also want to learn the best position to play in Valorant that will take your game to another level, then go to skillcapped.com to unlock our hyper improvement system that will teach you everything you need to blast to the rankings in Valorant. The link will be provided in the description below. Going into position number 2, we have the tubes and Icebox. This is a position that we've seen players try to work with often. They creep in close and hope that someone will peek tubes and they can surprise them. However, this position has similar flaws to A short on Haven. First, this is a position that you are hard committing to. If someone peeks you and you pick them off, that's great. But if that enemy has teammates close by to get the trade, you're essentially dead meat. The time it takes for you to run all the way back to kitchen is significant, meaning that you're essentially stuck fighting and hoping to come out on top against a bunch of players. Not an ideal situation. Now, if you're trying to get a cheese kill with a Judge or Frenzy on a save round, this could be okay. Or say you had someone to back you up in middle so that you wouldn't get swarmed, then it wouldn't be all too shabby in terms of helping you get a quick pick and then dip out. Other than that though, there are way more safer positions that can do just as well. For example, playing further back in tubes still gives you a solid headshot angle where you can get a pick and then back away to kitchen. You can also just play kitchen itself where you have a lot more space to work with, while the enemy will be forced to run down the narrow tube and end up with no backup route. Our third spot is going to be the back of Hookah and Bind. This spot seems promising on paper, but ends up being more of a one and done position. The main idea being here is that players enter Hookah without checking their corners, in which you can then stab them from the back. At the lower ranks, this may be viable as many players do not check this angle. However, even in those ranks, if you play there just once, it's likely they'll learn from their mistakes and play it out in subsequent rounds, whether it's finally checking that corner or chucking flashes and molotovs in that direction. Again, no escape route and you're going to be toast unless you have some sort of ability to get yourself out of there quickly, like a jet dash or Yoru teleport. We're going to take a broader approach with our fourth spot, which is going to be the attacker side of middle on Ascent. We've seen it happen time and time again where players spend way too much time mingling around in middle on attack without getting any control elsewhere. This isn't a good position to be at for too long because it leaves so many options for you to get shot down. The most obvious being straight down middle, but players can peek out from cat, they can push through B, or they can push through A to surround you. If you found yourself in this position before, then hearing flank B or flank A sounds all too familiar to you. The idea with middle is it provides grounds for additional routes for you to push onto a site. You can run it down mid and go into A or B, or you can go through cat and do a split push onto the A site. It's not a position that you should stay for too long at. Rather, it opens the door for you to make a large variety of plays, but the plays can't be made if you just stay in middle itself. This fifth position may catch some of you guys by surprise, but it is the vents on split. Now you might be thinking, whoa, wait a minute Dr. Zora, this is a standard position to be playing on split. We see players here all the time, so how could this be a bad spot to play? Well, the issue with vents is actually just that. This is a very standard and common position for players to be in, and as a result, most attackers will use abilities to cover it up. For For example, it's quite common for attackers to smoke off vents when they're trying to go for mid control. Just with that already, the vents position becomes quite useless to play in. The issue that then arises from here is that players don't know what to do once they're smoked up. We've seen it countless times where players just sit behind the smoke, waiting for it to fade so they can get vision again. Well, by that point the enemy could have just ran it down mid and mailroom and take control of B. If you're in vents, it's likely that only one player is playing heaven and they're going to get completely run down if you simply hide behind the smoke and let them lie. If you find the enemies are not smoking you off, then this is an awesome position. But most higher ranked players are going to smoke it by default, and you're going to find yourself feeling pretty useless as the enemy just straight up takes control of B with little resistance. Getting into number 6, we have the teleporters on Bind. Now we've seen varying opinions about the teleporters. Some love it while others hate it, and while it may or may not add to your playbook an ability to play mind games with enemies, we still see it used fairly often to try to go for these flank kills. You hear the call out the enemies are at B and you immediately take the teleporter to try to help your teammates out. Now there's a big issue that arises from this, which is that you've essentially trapped yourself by teleporting. The teleporters make a very loud noise when it's used, so players are going to know you're there and are going to wait for you to eventually peek out, and you're going to get overwhelmed. Unless you're Yoru and prepare to TP ahead of time, you have no way of getting out once you're in. Many times we think that if we just time it, we'll be able to get them from behind, but we found more often than not that this isn't the case. There's usually 1 or 2 players at bare minimum waiting for you to pop out, and they just kill you no problem. Either that, or by the time you open the door, the enemy's already past you and are pushing onto the site. Instead of relying so heavily on the teleporters to rotate, we recommend going for the long rotation to B site or going around for the flank. Yes, they're longer rotates, but they're rotates that are harder for enemies to predict and don't leave you behind a rock in a hard place. We recommend trying to trust that your team can hold long enough for you to arrive, or if that's not the case, then changing your setup would be a much better option than trying to use the teleporter. Our 7th spot is a tricky one, and it's going to be the Chute on Breeze. Now Breeze is still in its very early stages, and as such we still don't know too much about which positions are truly the best and worst. However, one position that we've seen used a bit too much is being under the Chute on Breeze. We've seen many players tuck themselves under here, hoping for a sneaky cheese kill when someone tries to rotate through it. The issue with this position though is it's actually quite tricky to get a kill in here. Yes, the enemy will be inaccurate while they're in the air, but you also can't really get a good headshot in this position. As a result, we've seen it many times where players have difficulty finishing a player off, and then they just land and kill them instead. Along with that, this position doesn't give you any map control at all. The chances of someone actually dropping through here is on the slimmer end, and it's so far back that it's not providing any benefit to the team. Because of that, we suggest avoiding playing here unless you are going for that funny surprise cheese shot. Don't make it too much of a habit and do it every round though. Dashing into position number 8, we have the control room on Ascent. This might come as a bit of a shocker to some players, as again, it's a position that we see players playing quite often. The issue with this position is similar to what we've discussed so far though. There's not really an escape option from here, so if multiple players swarm you, then you're going to be done for. Another issue that comes up is it's actually quite difficult to surprise players from here. The thought is that players won't check it and you'll catch players behind their backs while they push through from B garage. Well, the problem is that the timing is way too short for you to pull this off. If you stay tucked in the corner of control room, enemies can easily avoid you and get onto the site. It's also hard to tell when or if all the players are on the site, so the flank that you were thinking of could easily be destroyed if one player stays back in garage. There's no real benefit to playing this position besides being closer to the control for closing market door, or if you found that players like to push through stairs instead of halls and they don't check their corner. Overall though, you're gambling on the enemy making a mistake rather than being in an actual good spot to force the initiative yourself. Sticking with Ascent, we have our number 9 spot, which is Wine. Similar to the control room, many players play here thinking that people aren't going to check it, in which they can then go for the big multi-frag flank. With players gaining more and more experience on the map since its release though, we found that it's much more common that players will clear this area rather than not. Players may not directly run over to clear it, but they'll usually throw some sort of utility such as a Viper, Phoenix, or Killjoy Molly to force anyone that's stuck by there to come out and meet an inevitable death. An added issue is that even if you have an agent with mobility, you still can't get out of here. For example, a jet dash isn't going to be enough to get you back to the site, Omen teleport isn't going to get you out either, and a Reyna dismiss isn't long enough either if you're going for the surprise peek while attackers were setting up for A. The only agent that can really escape from here safely is Yoru with his teleport. If you don't have this safety net available, you're going to find yourself quite stuck playing in Wine. Last but not least, we have the middle box on Split. This is a position that we hesitated to put in right away to this video, but we found that it just needed to be included because it's just so punishable and commonly used. This is similar to the Wine position on Ascent, but even riskier. You're playing here essentially hoping that attackers don't clear it so that you can get those big boy kills. Fairly enough, this box doesn't get checked or cleared as often and extremely as Wine does, so time after time you could probably get some frags on it. But it shares the same flaws. There aren't many ways to reliably get to safety from here. A jet dash is no bueno, Omen Teleport, no bueno. Meridian Dismiss is okay, but it requires you to get a kill first. Otherwise, you're going to be toast. Same deal, Yoru is really the only agent that can reliably get away from here. Anyone else and you're likely going to either get cleared and killed or come out in a 1-for-1 trade. Even with the latter though, you never want to end up with even trades against attackers, as these trades tend to favor the attackers much more. Alright, if you haven't already, make sure to comment what your favorite map is in Valorant. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get more premium guides just like this one with one goal in mind: helping you become a better player. We here at SkillCapped want to thank you for watching. We'll catch you in the next. I'm Dr. Zora, and good luck out there.